Wizards of Waverly Place, and you're watching Disney Channel.
On April 18th, 1983, the Disney Channel would officially launch as a premium cable television station dedicated solely to airing Disney and Disney-related content. A move that decades later would go on to shape not just television history, but the entire landscape of pop culture as we know it. These early years, however, hardly resembled the tween-centric cultural juggernaut that the network would eventually become. The Disney Channel wasn't necessarily unpopular throughout the 80s and 90s, but due to launching under a premium subscription at a time when even basic cable packages were a luxury, not many people had access to it. Those who did would bear witness to a very different version of the station than you might be used to seeing today, focused around airing classic Disney movies, shorts, and cartoons, as well as cheap acquired programming, all meant for the entire family to be able to watch together. Practically none of the iconic branding associated with the network existed at this time. No wand IDs, no teen stars, no theme jingle. Even the original logo was practically unrecognizable. The Disney Channel would remain this way for a surprisingly long time, but towards the end of the 1990s, things would begin to change. After spending 14 years as a premium station, Disney Channel would make the jump to basic cable packages in 1997, and while it wouldn't change overnight, this shift in strategy marked the moment that it would begin its slow transformation into a tween-centric cultural powerhouse. It wouldn't take long for the very first building blocks of this new era to be implemented, as later that year saw the premiere of the very first ever Disney Channel original movie, also known as the DCOM.
Let's watch a Disney Channel movie.
Now, technically this was not a new concept. There were original movies made for the network as early as its launch in 1983, although up until this point they were referred to as Disney Channel Premiere Films. This slight change in naming may seem pointless, and it is, but DCOMs are officially considered by Disney to be an entirely different brand from the Premiere Films. They would soon go on to become a cornerstone of the network's identity throughout the 2000s, spawning massive hit franchises like High School Musical, Camp Rock, Xenon, The Cheetah Girls, and so much more. It wouldn't take long for the DCOM brand to hit its stride either, as already by 1998, Disney Channel would strike gold with its first of many massively successful TV movie franchises, that being the iconic HalloweenTown series. Airing as the fourth ever Disney Channel original movie, HalloweenTown became the first big hit for the DCOM brand, and would soon go on to spawn not one, not two, but 3 full sequels over the next 8 years. For the record, that's more sequels than any other DCOM has ever received in the network's history. These films were so successful that the Disney Channel still airs all of them each October, despite the fact that the series has been dormant for nearly 2 decades now. One could chalk that up to the Halloween theming keeping them relevant, but you don't see the same sort of treatment for, say, the Twitch's duology. Those were also incredibly popular Halloween-themed DCOMs, but Twitches 1 and 2 haven't aired on the network since 2017 and 2020 respectively. Clearly something about the HalloweenTown movies were built differently, but what was it? How has this completely dead DCOM series remained relevant decades later both in pop culture and on the Disney Channel itself? And what caused the network to abandon such a lucrative IP at the height of its ratings dominance, never to be rebooted or revived ever again? Spoiler alert, there's an answer to this question. It's not rhetorical. Join me as we embark on a journey to the world of HalloweenTown, to relive the franchise's rise to fame and explore the steep decline in quality and casting that led to its eventual demise. This is the Decay of HalloweenTown. The story of HalloweenTown begins not at the Disney Channel, but actually over on NBC during the late 1980s. Steve White, the head of NBC's movies and miniseries department, had recently left the network to create his own production company called Steve White Entertainment, but it wouldn't be long until their paths crossed once again. Shortly after his departure, NBC struck a deal with Walt Disney Television for the latter to create 6 new TV movies for their channel. Disney Television's vice president, Sherry Singer, chose to work with Steve White's new studio on this project, once again pulling him right back into the fold with his former company. This collaboration soon led to a romance between Steve and Sherry, and by the early 90s, the two had married and changed the company name to Singer White Entertainment. It was during this time, while looking for movie ideas to pitch to NBC, that Steve had remembered a question that his daughter asked him once. Where do all of the Halloween creatures go during the rest of the year when it's not October 31st? From there, I think you can see where this is going. Singer White Entertainment originally pitched HalloweenTown as an adult-oriented movie for NBC during the mid-90s, but the network foolishly passed up on it, leading to the script to be reworked as a children's film and pitched to the much less foolish Disney Channel, who also passed up on it. God damn it. This was still at a time when the Disney Channel was a squeaky clean, family-oriented premium station, but all of that was on the precipice of changing. In October of 1997, a few months after officially switching to basic cable, Disney Channel aired its first ever DCOM Under Wraps to coincide with the Halloween season. This actually ended up being a much bigger hit than the network anticipated, causing them to rethink that other Halloween-themed TV movie that had been pitched to them years earlier. After a few calls with Singer White Entertainment, HalloweenTown officially entered production, slated as Disney's next big Halloween special for 1998. Over that next year, Disney Channel would slowly begin to shift their focus away from family programming to market towards a more tween audience, and the first step of this transformation saw the introduction of Zoog Disney, an afternoon programming block aired squarely at young teenagers. Zoog Disney laid the foundation for what Disney Channel would soon become, although in this early period it only aired for a few hours during the day and was still mostly made up of acquired sitcoms like Boy Meets World and Sister Sister. HalloweenTown was born out of this transitional era on the network, where the focus was still split between the Disney Channel of old and new, and like many early DCOMs, it premiered as part of the network's evening family programming after Zoog Disney had already ended. On October 17th, 1998, 3.1 million families from around the world would tune in to watch the premiere of HalloweenTown, having no idea the cultural legacy that it or the DCOM branding would soon leave behind.
Saturday, October 17th on Magical World of Disney. Marnie Cromwell's family can't be normal.
Why?
Because her grandmother's a witch.
Totally.
And she lives in HalloweenTown, where it's Halloween all the time.
Halloween is cool.
Well, battling an evil shadow creature is just not normal.
Oh, big normal is vastly overrated.
Find out more about Marnie Cromwell's family's strange powers.
Powers? What powers?
In the Saturday premiere of Disney's original movie, HalloweenTown. Saturday, October 17th on Magical World of Disney.
HalloweenTown follows the story of 13-year-old Marnie Piper and her 2 younger siblings, Dylan and Sophie, all of whom are unknowingly witches and warlocks, being raised as normal humans by their single mother, Gwen. She's kept the family's magical roots hidden from the children for their entire lives, but this all changes one Halloween night when their grandma, Aggie Cromwell, arrives to bring some much-needed spooky festivity into the boring Piper household. While sneaking around after bedtime, Marnie discovers that Aggie is a powerful witch who lives in an alternate dimension known as HalloweenTown, a magical realm created thousands of years ago by Halloween monsters in order to escape human persecution. She's crossed dimensions to warn Gwen that the citizens of HalloweenTown have been disappearing one by one under the influence of a mysterious dark force, and needs the combined power of the entire Piper Cromwell line of witches to put a stop to this. Gwen refuses to help, as she's committed to living a magic-free life and forcing her children to do the same, even knowing that Marnie's powers will expire if she doesn't begin training that night. With the cat now out of the bag, Marnie convinces her skeptical brother Dylan to sneak out with her and follow Aggie back to HalloweenTown so they can help save the day. Also, Sophie is here, somehow.
How did you get here?
I followed you onto the bus.
But you were asleep.
I was pretending.
Once in the titular HalloweenTown, the kids meet the jolly Mayor Calabar, who hooks them up with a ride over to their grandmother's mansion with Benny, the wisecracking cab driver.
Catch me in the next life.
Aggie, who was surprisingly unconcerned that her grandkids just warped dimensions unsupervised, fills them in on the dark force looming in over her world, enlisting their help to find the ingredients needed to power a magical talisman that... well, I guess it's not really explained what it does. Huh. Aggie takes the kids all over town to see the wonders and magic of her world, explaining that time passes much slower there, so they have plenty of time before their mother realizes that they're missing. One magic broomstick joyride later, however, they're immediately interrupted by an angry Gwen, who's come to put her foot down on all of the fun. She takes the children to the mayor's office to get a bus schedule back home, only to realize that the mayor is Calabar, her ex-boyfriend from back when she still practiced magic.
You always did let your magic do the talking.
You used to like it.
Aggie, meanwhile, gets a tip-off from a young lad named Luke, who's popped up a few times throughout the film as a sort of bully figure. He claims to know the evil warlock that she's looking for and leads her to an abandoned movie theater, where it's revealed that all of the missing citizens have been held captive under a freeze spell by the Dark Force himself, who's building an army to reclaim the human world. The Pipers burst in to save Aggie, but are too late, as both her and Gwen are frozen, with the children only barely managing to escape. With the fate of HalloweenTown resting solely in their hands, they gather the remaining ingredients and finish the spell to power the talisman. During the final showdown, it's revealed that the Dark Force was Mayor Calabar all along, bitter that Gwen had married a mortal over him. He tries to stop Marnie from inserting the talisman into the town jack-o'-lantern, but is fooled by a bait and switch from Luke, who's had a sudden change of heart after seeing Aggie get frozen. Marnie barely manages to insert the talisman, freeing all of the citizens in the theater, and with all 5 members of the Cromwell Piper family joining forces, Calabar is banished to the Shadow Realm, never to be seen again. Luke reverts back into a hideous goblin, revealing that he was only involved with Calabar's plan because he offered to make him attractive, and Aggie decides to return to the mortal world for a year to help Marnie in her witch training. All is well. HalloweenTown was an immediate hit for the network, standing as the most watched DCOM premiere until Xenon the Sequel beat it out 3 years later, and it's easy to see why. It perfectly captures the spirit and aesthetics of the Halloween season without being a horror movie, and they got some serious talent to back the project up. Director Dwayne Dunham had previously worked on the original Star Wars trilogy, as well as the David Lynch series Twin Peaks, and would soon go on to direct several other early DCOMs such as The 13th Year and Tiger Cruise. Mark Mothersbaugh, the lead singer of Devo, composed all of the film's music. And let me just say that this man was everywhere in the late 90s. He composed for Rugrats, Frosty the Snowman Returns, Clifford the Big Red Dog, the entire PS1 Crash Bandicoot trilogy, and so much more. Even to this day, working on projects like Hotel Transylvania and Ratchet & Clank. His musical talents perfectly encapsulates the film's 90s charm, providing a vibe that's spooky, but in a very campy, silly, and over-the-top way. Looking back, however, the movie is obviously not perfect. It's clear that the project had a shoestring budget, which is evident by the very small and cramped set, as well as the dollar store level costuming. Anytime that characters are walking around town, they're moving very slowly as to not outpace the limited filming area. And a lot of the background characters just don't fit the monster vibe at all. Calabar's assistant, for example, is just a regular woman wearing a pincushion costume. Luckily though, the film's charm more than makes up for it, and over the years it's gone on to become a bit of a Halloween cult classic even outside of the DCOM branding. It wouldn't take long for the Disney Channel to capitalize on this, as only 3 years later saw the debut of HalloweenTown 2: Calabar's Revenge, the second ever DCOM sequel following Xenon the Sequel earlier in 2001. During those 3 years, however, a lot had changed on the Disney Channel. Zoog Disney had gradually become a ratings powerhouse, soon expanding to cover the network's weekend programming, taking away even more time from the adult and family content it had once relied on. The Zoog mascots themselves would soon be redesigned in 3D CGI, in order to come across as more hip and with it to their tween audience. It was during this time that Zoog Disney hit its stride, with its first breakout shows, Lizzie McGuire and Even Stevens, being so successful that they single-handedly launched the careers of Hilary Duff and Shia LaBeouf. Wow, those rhyme, what the fuck? Soon to follow was Zoog Disney's first original animated program, The Proud Family, which debuted in 2001 and would be followed by Kim Possible the next year. As you can see, Disney Channel as we know it today was fully emerging by now. Production on new Disney Channel original movies remained more or less consistent, carrying the same late 90s vibes as before, although we're now being pumped out at an alarming rate. In 2000 alone, a dozen of these were released onto the channel, but at this point, HalloweenTown and Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century, were the only two to really leave any massive cultural impact. They had also begun airing as part of Zoog Movie Nights, instead of during the evening family programming, a shift which saw the introduction of the iconic Let's Watch a Disney Channel Movie intro, albeit with different music and lyrics referencing the Zoog branding.
It's the right time for a Zoog movie, yeah. The right time for a Zoog movie.
The network was still in a transitional period, but the scales were quickly tipping towards a tween demographic. HalloweenTown 2, Calabar's Revenge would premiere on October 12, 2001, as one of the final DCOMs of the Zoog era. Soon, everything would change.
Ever wish you could be a witch? We're behind the scenes of HalloweenTown 2, Calabar's Revenge, to find out what it takes.
Check this out. This is something every witch needs. A spell book.
I'm training the girls to take over, learn all of the spells, and how to save this wonderful Halloween town from any evil.
Ut aduco damus!
Didn't I say it right?
Don't miss the premiere of HalloweenTown 2, Calabar's Revenge, opening Friday at 8, 7 Central on
Picking up 2 years after the first movie left off, it's once again Halloween night and the Piper family are hosting a party to celebrate. Grandma Aggie is still living in the mortal world to aid the children in their training, but while checking in on HalloweenTown through her crystal ball, Sophie warns her that she senses a dangerous force approaching the household. The two go to investigate while Marnie, meanwhile, has been flirting with a boy at the party named Cal. Oh, I see where this is going. She takes him to Aggie's enchanted bedroom to show off how quirky her family is, but during the brief time that they're in there, Cal uses magic to steal Aggie's spellbook, possibly to get some sort of revenge. Soon after, Aggie's endless candy bag mysteriously runs out of candy, seeming to have lost its magical properties altogether. Knowing that the portal between worlds will close after midnight, she decides that it's best if her and Marnie take a quick trip over to her house in HalloweenTown just to make sure that everything's okay. It immediately turns out that everything is not okay, as a mysterious gray spell has been cast over the entire town, slowly turning all of the residents into boring gray caricatures of humans. This includes Luke from the first film, whom the two take under their wing to try and cure. Cal's head emerges from a nearby wall and reveals himself to be the son of ex-mayor Calabar, explaining that this was all just a ploy to trap them in a power-drained HalloweenTown while he takes revenge on the human world, planning to turn everyone into caricatures of monsters. Wasting no time, the three hitch a ride over to Aggie's mansion with a gray human Benny, hoping to find her backup spellbook so that they can restore magic to the world and get back home. As they tear the house apart, unable to find it anywhere, Luke suddenly transforms back into a goblin, leading them to mistakenly believe that the spell may be temporary. Aggie remembers that all lost items in both universes always end up at the home of a junk magnet creature named Gort, meaning that all they have to do to find it is go and check there. Upon arrival, however, they find that the gray spell has gotten him too. This new gray Gort has sold all of his junk, now spending his life sorting pairs of socks. And to make matters worse, Aggie begins to turn gray as well. She manages to give Marnie and Luke a time travel spell before succumbing to the curse, and the two travel back in time to before before Gort had sold all of his junk. Back in the mortal world, Gwen has left with Cal's father, Alex, to attend a different Halloween party down the block. But Sophie suspects that Alex isn't actually real, instead believing him to be a golem made of frogs created to do Cal's evil bidding. Sophie and Dylan fly over by magic broomstick to warn their mother, but end up arriving too late, as Cal casts his spell, turning everyone on Earth into a caricature of whatever costume they were wearing. Marnie and Luke, meanwhile, are still unable to retrieve the spellbook as Gort had long ago sold it to Calabar, but after some brainstorming, they come to realize that Marnie saying the phrase Trappa mid-sentence earlier was what turned Luke back to normal, meaning that the gray spell was the word apart. The two hop on Marnie's magic broom and fly through Gort's timeline portal that he apparently just has in his closet, I guess, but unfortunately make it back to the present too late to catch the portal back home. The writers immediately forgetting that they can time travel, apparently. Not one to give up, Marnie and a newly cured Aggie contact Sophie and Dylan, and with their combined Cromwell magic, they're able to open a permanent portal between worlds. Marnie manages to retrieve both spellbooks from Cal during a final confrontation, and he's whisked away by cursed vines claiming that he'll get his revenge. We never hear or see from him again. Great. Jumping from the first film to this one thing that you'll immediately notice is that the cast have aged considerably. Both Marnie and Sophie's actresses look appropriately 3 years older, but I swear to God, the actor for Dylan must have hit puberty the literal day after the first movie wrapped up filming, because he went from being a scrawny little boy to a full-grown college student here.
It's obvious why Halloween is bad. I mean, that whole razor blade and the apple thing was an urban myth.
I mean, I was hoping for a little social interaction, but you're the one that's got the date.
It's seriously jarring. And funnily enough, he doesn't even noticeably age again for the rest of the series. Another thing I noticed was an increase in references to the existence of the internet. The first HalloweenTown movie didn't have any, but here we see Marnie using online chat rooms with characters constantly making references to the net.
World Wide Web I've heard about. Does it involve spiders?
It really goes to show just how much the internet grew during those 3 years alone. For the most part though, HalloweenTown 2 recaptures the same charm and atmosphere as the original, and honestly I found it even more entertaining. While there was some shift in personnel, they mostly retained the same writing staff from the first movie, as well as composer Mark Mothersbaugh, all of whom helped keep this sequel feeling consistent with the original. HalloweenTown 2 is often considered by fans to be the peak of the series, held in high regard for retaining everything that worked about the original while offering a higher stakes plot with darker themes. The following two films, however, would see massive shifts in tone, casting, and quality, leading to a sort of cultural rejection compared to the first two. This utter decay would begin with the third film, HalloweenTown High, in 2004, before reaching an all-time low with 2006's Return to Halloweentown. But to understand what led to this change in direction, we have to go back and catch up with the Disney Channel's change in direction. In the summer of 2002, the network would undergo its biggest transformation yet, completely cutting out its remaining family programming and quietly discontinuing the Zoog Disney block. Instead, Disney Channel shifted overnight into becoming a 24/7 tween-focused station, directly competing with Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. This was the moment that Disney Channel became what we know it as today, with all of the iconic branding and a focus on Disney-owned teen stars as the face of the network. This tween idol synergy would quickly begin to affect the production of DCOMs, as more and more they began to feature actors from other popular Disney Channel shows in lead and supporting roles, instead of hiring independent casts like the earlier ones. As far as I can tell, this began with 2002's Cadet Kelly, a smash success that starred Lizzie McGuire's Hilary Duff and even Stevens' Christy Carlson Romano as the lead characters. They doubled down on this with 2003's The Cheetah Girls, starring That's So Raven's Raven-Symoné, beginning Disney's tradition of using their original shows and movies as vehicles to push the music careers of their up-and-coming teen stars. HalloweenTown High premiered in this new tween-focused era of the channel, and it's immediately obvious that some changes were made to the formula. Most notably was the forced inclusion of Disney Channel stars Lucas Grabeel and Alicia Rulin into the film's casting, a move specifically made to get kids familiar with these actors before starring them in High School Musical a year later. None of the previous writers or directors returned to the project, nor did Mark Mothersbaugh, the film's score instead taking on a more traditional 2000s DCOM sound complete with Disney-created teen pop songs. HalloweenTown High aired on October 8th, 2004 to the highest ratings for the series yet, though its legacy would be far more divisive.
Marnie and her friends from HalloweenTown are back.
Yes!
And this time, they're headed for high school.
Everyone keeps saying, hey, what's up? What's up where?
Now, she faces the biggest test of her life.
The hopes of all of HalloweenTown are on you.
Getting these guys to fit in.
Pete, honey, could you do something about that tail?
If she fails, she'll lose all her powers.
I doubt that even you are a match for the Knights.
1 year following the events of the previous film, Marnie has now become an ambassador of sorts after permanently opening the portal between worlds. She proposes a plan to the HalloweenTown Council for a group of their students to cross over to the mortal world and attend high school with her, figuratively betting the Cromwell family magic that she'll be able to prove that humans and monsters can finally get along. To her surprise, the council takes her bet 100% seriously, approving her proposal but warning that if the students can't last through Halloween night without giving up, her entire family will be stripped of their powers forever. I went into this movie expecting a drop in quality, but what I wasn't expecting was for the film to be downright bad. All of this happens within the first 3 or so minutes, providing zero breathing room for the viewer to just sit with these characters before establishing the plot and stakes. The first 2 installments weren't perfect, but they at least felt paced like proper films. In contrast to this opening scene, the entire rest of the movie consists of little more than padded out filler, where things just sort of happen until it decides to end. HalloweenTown doesn't even appear once, the entire plot instead taking place in the human world as Marnie and Aggie guide this ragtag group of monsters through life in high school. This leads to the film feeling much less aesthetically spooky, especially since the students transferring over from HalloweenTown spend most of the runtime in these human disguises. Speaking of, how are they supposed to prove that mortals and monsters can finally get along when the monsters are still forced to keep their identities a secret at all costs? My head literally hurts trying to make any sense of this. No characters from the first 2 films return in this one except for the core Piper Cromwell family, and they all feel oddly misused. Sophie appears in no less than 3 scenes in the entire movie, given absolutely nothing to do, which is a complete shame. In the first 2 films, she was heavily hinted at to be the most powerful witch in the family, showcasing a deep connection to her magical instincts due to having spent less time than her older siblings being conditioned by Gwen. She was always the one able to sense when something wasn't right, and in the first film was the only one of the 3 kids to consistently use magic. Here, she sits on the couch a few times, I guess. Aggie has transitioned from a mentor role to a comic relief character, substitute teaching at the school in various positions throughout the movie.
I must warn you, I have quite a little temper.
Where she got her teaching license suddenly, I suppose we'll never know. Dylan is written as a pure mortal in this movie with no reference to his magical abilities, even when Marnie sticks him on the ceiling.
Are you okay?
Oh, I'm fine for someone who slept on the ceiling.
I said I was sorry.
But Gwen, conversely, is suddenly all gung-ho about using magic, even going as far as to haphazardly use a freeze spell on Marnie's new love interest while under the impression that it was an intruder. Oh yeah, Marnie's new love interest. His name is Cody. He exists. I have nothing really to add about this plotline. It's a very generic DCOM high school love arc, and he's written out by the next movie, never to be mentioned again. Fantastic stuff. The closest thing that this movie has to a main villain is the leader of the HalloweenTown Council, Edgar Dalloway, the father of Ethan Dalloway, who is one of the main students staying with Marnie. His plan is to steal the Cromwell family magic by forcing Marnie's ambassador proposal to fail, thus using it to take over HalloweenTown. Although he already rules HalloweenTown, So, for most of the film, however, he is a complete non-presence, only really showing up for the climax when he brings the school's haunted house to life, causing chaos among the student body. For most of the runtime, the main threat instead comes from the Knights of the Iron Dagger, an ancient order of monster hunters who originally drove all of the Halloween creatures out of the mortal world. This is an interesting concept, although they also have basically no impact on the plot beyond leaving a few ominous warning signs early on. It's revealed at the climax of the film that the knight leaving these symbols was the school principal working under Edgar Dalloway's orders, but the conflict is immediately resolved in a single line of dialogue right after the students reveal their true identities as monsters to the school.
You know what? You were right, Aggie. This never really fit.
Overall, this movie gave me total whiplash coming off of the first two installments, featuring a much goofier and laid-back tone with far worse writing and pacing. But of course, to the channel's audience of 10-year-olds at the time, that didn't matter. HalloweenTown High was a smash success for the network, watched by over 6 million viewers on the night of its premiere, leading Disney to greenlight yet another sequel into production. By October of 2006, a fourth movie titled Return to HalloweenTown would premiere on the channel to a series high of 7.5 million viewers. But this time, Disney would fuck up so badly that not even their tween audience could forgive them. I'm of course referring to the recasting of Marnie Piper. Throughout the first three films, Marnie Piper was played by Kimberly J. Brown, an independent child actress who was mostly uninvolved in the Disney Channel outside of her leading role in the HalloweenTown movies. By 2006, however, leading a DCOM with an independent actor hired all the way back in the 90s would be antithetical to what the network was trying to accomplish at the time. Like I mentioned, DCOMs in this era and beyond were consistently being led by Disney Channel's own teen stars who they could sign to a record label and turn into international celebrities. This methodology led to the rise of massive names in pop culture, like Selena Gomez, Miley Cyrus, the Jonas Brothers, Dylan and Cole Sprouse, Demi Lovato, and so many more. Enter Sarah Paxton, an up-and-coming teen actress with a music career who had previously been cast in the 2001 Disney Channel original movie, Hounded. She would be briefly swooped up by the network during the mid-2000s, guest appearing on various shows like Wizards of Waverly Place and Jonas, as well as musical projects like Disney Mania 4, a CD consisting of songs from Disney Channel stars like the Cheetah Girls, the Jonas Brothers, Jesse McCartney, Miley Cyrus, and so on. Return to HalloweenTown was very clearly meant to be her breakout role on the network, as logistically it just made sense for Disney to market the movie around a popular teen actress who could potentially be molded into an international pop star. While Disney's official word was that Kimberly J. Brown was unavailable for filming, according to Kimberly herself, this was not the case. She was completely open to star as Marnie in a potential HalloweenTown 4, and was devastated when she found out secondhand that the role had been given away to somebody else without her even being reached out to. Series co-creator Sherry Springer had this to say on the matter.
This was not something we wanted to do. We could not come to terms that we felt were fair. We just weren't able to. We couldn't make the deal work. That was why Kimberly J. Brown was recast, and we didn't want to not do it. I know people didn't like it, but it's not like people haven't been recast before. I always was sorry that's how it went.
It's very clear to me that Disney Channel executives recast Marnie as Sarah Paxton in order to promote the film with one of their own teen stars in the leading role. And this is especially obvious when you consider the fact that High School Musical's Lucas Grabeel was promoted to a co-star role alongside of her. These two Disney Channel stars carried all of the film's promotion alongside Disney teen heartthrob Jesse McCartney, who had written an original bubblegum pop song to serve as the movie's official theme. The only two main actors from the original trilogy to reprise their roles here are Judith Hoag as Gwen and Joey Zimmerman as Dylan, both of whom at least keep parts of this movie feeling recognizably like HalloweenTown. Debbie Reynolds made 2 very small cameo appearances as Aggie during the first couple of minutes of the movie, but is otherwise completely absent from the project. Her character only showing up later in the film as a younger version, also played by Sarah Paxton. Yes, both Marnie and Aggie were recast as Sarah Paxton in this movie. I'm not joking. Sophie, on the other hand, was written out of the movie entirely, as her actress, Emily Roski, had retired from acting immediately after HalloweenTown High. All of this executive meddling and recasting led to a very different take on HalloweenTown, one that received a ton of backlash at the time, and still receives intense backlash to this very day. So I guess let's talk about it. The plot revolves around Marnie and Dylan, who's now skipped a grade, starting college together at Witch University, a clear ripoff of Hogwarts from Harry Potter, only to discover that several members of the staff are plotting to use Marnie for their plans of HalloweenTown domination. Long ago, a young Aggie Cromwell locked away a powerful amulet with the ability to fully control any living being, and knowing that only a Cromwell can open the box and wield control, the evil Dominion devises a plan to blackmail Marnie into doing their bidding. A trio of school bullies known as the Sinister Sisters transform Dylan into a dog, and since all spells on campus become permanent by midnight on Halloween, Marnie is faced with a choice: save HalloweenTown or save her brother. Of course, she saves both because, it's a TV movie for kids, so. While the actual plot of this movie is a fair bit more engaging than the previous film, HalloweenTown High, unfortunately, the recasting ruins what would otherwise be a pretty serviceable 2000s DCOM. Sarah Paxton is not a bad actress by any means, but she doesn't capture the quirkiness of either Marnie or Aggie the same way that Kimberly J. Brown and Debbie Reynolds did. It's noticeably distracting that 3 of the 5 main original cast members are just not involved with this project, especially considering that most of the supporting characters from the first 2 films are still absent here. I will give them points for bringing back Benny the cab driver, but come on, where is Luke at? He was central to those first 2 films, and the character who replaced him narratively, Ethan Dalloway, is boring. I guess that shipping Marnie with a goblin was far less marketable than with High School Musical's Lucas Grabeel, which is probably all that Disney executives cared about. I mean, a big part of both the film and its marketing revolve around a forced romance arc between the 2. Despite the movie premiering to its largest audience yet, the cultural pushback against Marnie's recasting was unavoidable. Even as a kid, I remember being thrown off by this, confused as to why only the main actress had been recast and not any other returning character. While I have no evidence to directly confirm this, I have a hunch feeling that this massive pushback was what led to the inevitable end of the HalloweenTown franchise. Despite the remaining cast aging out of their roles, it's clear that at one point they had plans to continue making these. For starters, Return to HalloweenTown ends on a cliffhanger, with Dylan in possession of the amulet and ominously sealing it away in one of his textbooks. Combine this with the fact that each new installment was continuing to get higher and higher ratings, many people at the time felt that a HalloweenTown 5 was all but inevitable. I'd assume that the plan would have been to reboot the entire cast going forward, but had that been the case, the pushback against Sarah Paxton likely halted whatever plans they may have once had. That or they just suddenly didn't feel like making them anymore. I don't know, I'm not a scientist. If you couldn't tell, I think that HalloweenTown is the perfect mirror to represent how the values of the Disney Channel changed going from the 80s and 90s into the turn of the millennium. When the original movie premiered in 1998, the network was still primarily aimed at families and was just dipping its toes into tween programming. By the time the franchise wrapped up in 2006, however, we were fully in the era of Hannah Montana, the Jonas Brothers, and High School Musical. The series outlived the time period of its conception, piece by piece losing its cheesy 90s Halloween vibe and slowly transforming into just another vehicle for the Disney Channel to shill its teenage celebrities. The pushback against Marnie's recasting has remained rather fierce online throughout the last 20 years or so, especially as Kimberly J. Brown has become a TikTok influencer off the back of her role in the original 3 films. It's clear that she holds a great love and appreciation for the franchise, reassuring fans that if Disney were to ever reboot the series, she would love to return as Marnie Piper. Also, as a fun fact, she's currently married to Daniel Counts, who played Cal in HalloweenTown 2. Talk about enemies to lovers, am I right? On the Disney side of things, however, the company has more or less left the franchise for dead. Besides a 2007 children's book based on the final film, the only HalloweenTown media that's been produced since has been a trilogy of minute-long chibi shorts uploaded to the Disney Channel's YouTube page in 2020. These shorts contain no dialogue and are complete Cocomelon level brain rot, a true symbol of how far Disney Channel have fallen since the death of cable television in the mid-2010s. Speaking of Disney Channel's decline, on September 22nd of 2022, the network would air its final ever Disney Channel original movie, Under Wraps 2, a sequel not to the 1997 original, but a remake from 2021. Regardless, the DCOM brand both began and ended with the Under Wraps franchise, as by the turn of the 2020s, new original movies were struggling to even bring in 500,000 viewers. They've now been rebranded simply as Disney Original Movies, and are being produced primarily for Disney Plus instead of the once popular Disney Channel. Whether HalloweenTown gets rebooted into the streaming era remains to be seen. It happened with the far less popular Under Wraps, so it isn't out of the question, especially since all 4 movies still air on the Disney Channel every Halloween. Even if it does, however, it'll never have the same cultural impact that the originals had, when millions of kids were all forced to watch the same exact programming at the same exact time live on cable television. While the Disney Channel may be dying in front of our very eyes, those who grew up with it will remember the impact that it had on society for decades to come. Thanks for watching to the end of the video, and even bigger thank you to my Patreon supporters, for whom projects like these wouldn't be possible without. I have more pop culture video essays coming down the pipeline for 2025, but until then I have some other videos linked below for you to check out if you haven't already. With all of that said, I've been GregCubed, and I'll see you next time.